Hello! Welcome, everyone, to PaizoCon. Here it is, the first live panel of the show. And here we are talking about Hellfire Crisis and Battlecry and all those sort of associated books and products that we can talk about. I'm Jason Keeley, Senior Designer, Pathfinder Rules and Lore Team, and Design Lead for Battlecry. I'll let my fellow panelists introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Logan Bonner. I'm the Pathfinder lead designer. I also worked on Battlecry.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I am a let me try that again. I'm Michelle. I'm a developer on the narrative team, and I am working on a different part of the crisis on the adventure paths.
Exciting. Yes, we're going to talk all about that. This brand new meta event called the Hellfire Crisis, the first phase of which kicks off this summer at Gen Con with the release of Battlecry. As we go along, if you have any questions about this, pop them in the chat. We'll collect our mods. Will collect them, and we'll get to a Q&A session at the end here. So, what is the Hellfire Crisis, and what does it have to do with a big war? Of course, it all begins. It's all because Gorm died. It's always because at this point now, the Gorm's dead. You know that.
Well, you kill one god.
You kill one god, and
everything is Gorm's fault.
Goes off. But you know, his death has scattered loads of those little artifacts, so called war shards, sort of across Golarion, and people, the mortal people, in power and adventurers are all scrambling to gather these things up and get some mythic power and some and whatnot. Including the likes, of course, of her infernal magistrix, Abigail III. So she believes that there's a small insurgent group in Isgard known as the Hellbreakers League, that they have one of those war shards, right? And so she doesn't think they should have it, right? She wants it for herself. She also believes they're hiding in a town called Breach Hill, which may be familiar to some people. It's near Citadel Alterain, which was a big part near sort of the very first Pathfinder 2E adventure path. And so she sent some Hell Knights from the Order of the Rack to go down there and root them out. In typical Hell Knight fashion, they just stomp all over the place. They institute martial law. They begin arresting and interrogating people, trying to find these Hellbreakers League insurgents, wherever they might be, and find their war shard, right? It gets bad, right? And some of the people sort of cry out for help from other countries. And Andoran sends a group of diplomats led by the semi-retired Eagle Knight, General Reginald Cormoth. There he is. Unfortunately, he is kind of captured by the Hell Knights, accused of espionage and dissidence, and then publicly executed in the town of Breach Hill. Michelle, what did the Hellbreakers League think about all of this?
So the Hellbreakers League, spoiler alert, they may have been, in fact, if you read War of Immortals, looking for war shards. After all, and they're not very happy with Cheliax stomping around when their whole goal is to react against Cheliax and try to get rid of this oppression on Isgard. So they're pretty ticked off, and they reach out to the Andoran forces that are also pretty upset that a beloved general of theirs just got murdered for without a really good cause, let's be real.
Yeah. Like they say he was spying, but like those accusations do not hold any water in Andoran. They're like, our guy, he's dead. Oh no. They start pressuring the elected officials of Andoran, including the People's Council and Supreme-Elect Indira Marusek. They're saying like, hey, Eagle Knights should go in there and kick those Hell Knights out. They're, and there's some political machinations here, some gray areas where the Supreme-Elect is like, well, the Hell Knights are not technically Cheliax's army. So if we send the Eagle Knights, which are not technically our army, into Isgard, it won't technically be a war. It'll just be sort of a skirmish between two quote-unquote independent organizations, right? Well, she gets the approval of the People's Council. Of course, the people of Andoran are happy that this is going to happen, and they send those Eagle Knights in, and this sparks what is known as the Battle of Hell Knight Hill, where the Andoran Eagle Knight forces clash with Hell Knight forces. Hellbreakers League kind of steps in there and helps them out, and they Hell Knights are routed. They're kicked out of Breach Hill. They're kicked out of Citadel Alterain. and basically are sort of sent packing out to Logos, which is a city sort of near the border of Isger and Cheliax, right? Well, Abigail Thrune doesn't like that, right? You can see the Abigail Thrune did not like that. He's like, okay, all right, well, look, this is what we need to do now. All you Hell Knight orders, you are now officially Cheliax, working for me. And you're officially Cheliaxian. You have to, you're basically nationalized, right? Even those outside of Cheliax. And then, some of them don't agree with that. Some of them are a little more, I would say, more neutral about it. And some of them, the people, the order that's in Varissia, for instance, like, we don't have anything to do with Cheliax. What's going on here?
Jason, I'm starting to get the idea there's a whole chain of people disliking things throughout this whole.
Well, some people,
scenario.
dislike. It's the whole thing. Luckily, the computer remembers. And so but like people like the orders like the Order of the Rack, of course, like, yay, we love Cheliax, let's go fight officially for them. And then, of course, you got the goblins of the Chitterwood, who are sort of in between Cheliax and the Breach Hill area, right? They're getting nervous that there's going to be another war. I mean, they're right, but they're just sort of like, they start thinking about what are we going to do? How are we going to keep some of the people out? What's this going to be to us? Both countries and Cheliax and Andorans, their navies start to prepare for aquatic skirmishes, and it's basically a powder keg waiting to explode. And that's the prelude to the Hellfire Crisis, right? This event is going to take place over the next year or so and feature a titanic struggle between those two powerful nations of the Inner Sea, and Andoran and Cheliax, right? And who knows who else might join in on either side. We're going to have Lost Omens books. We're going to have society scenarios. We're going to have adventures, all sorts of things that'll tie into this particular event. As I mentioned, it sort of really kicks off with the Battle of Hell Knight Hill. And you can participate in that fight in a special ticketed Gen Con event. In it, you're going to take control of some of Andoran's sort of armed forces, so some of their troops, as they clash with Hell Knight cavalry and besiege the nearby citadel in hopes of rooting them out. So these battles will take place in like 1 hour chunks. So if you're at the show and you have some time between meals or other scenarios you're playing, or stopping by the Paizo booth, go see if you can check it out. See if there's any tickets available. I don't know if they're all sold out, but you can even buy them early ahead of time. It's going to be great fun. We're going to have cool terrain, special terrain for this. It's going to look great. It's going to basically be kind of like how we used to do delves at PaizoCon, but a little more sort of tilted towards the PC's favor, let's say. They're not designed to kill you, although some armies might not make it, and there's a lot of death in that kind of stuff. So to support the war metaplot that we're going through, we've got Battlecry, which we just saw the cover of just a moment ago. This is a new source book for our war themed adventures, or just fighting in general, right? If you checked out last year's playtest, you'll know a little bit about the Commander and the Guardian. There are two new classes appearing here in this book. And this cover, I just love this cover. We've got our two iconics on the front there, and just sort of Eagle Knights charging with them. They're ready to go towards a handful of, I'm sure, Hell Knights there are ready to stand against them. But we're going to give some previews about what's in this book right now, I think. So get your notebook ready for taking notes for Reddit, I guess. So you've probably seen, if you've checked out the playtest, you've seen some of the tactics that the commander can employ. But there's one that we added for the final book that I want to sort of highlight right now. It's an expert tactic, so you're not going to get this until like after 7th level, but it's kind of fun. And sort of as I'm explaining this to you, remember that starting at 1st level, a commander can sort of give a reaction to one of their squad mates, so to use for this particular tactic. And this tactic is called Alley Oop. And I love that name. It's basically allows your squad mates to sort of chuck things at each other. Like, oh, you need someone, you throw that potion to the person who needs it. And as long as they're sort of like both within the commander's banner's aura, they can just sort of chuck it as what do we see here? You chuck it as a free action, and the person who's chucked at can grab it as a reaction, right? And if they catch it, they can activate it if it's a consumable. So it's one action for the commander to say, you throw this over there, and then a whole chain of events happens. It's exciting. And if it's a special type of ammunition, that takes like one or few actions to reload, the person who catches it can reload it into their weapon. So it's a cool way to share resources on the field of battle, and get everyone sort of like working together. It's not sort of like obviously the most flashy one of like murder all those people or charge over there, but it is kind of definitely very useful and helpful and that kind of thing. I think we've got a picture of the commander and the guardian battling some giants together side by side. Love that one. This is sort of a big chapter intro piece. And since we're talking about those two, let's talk a little bit about the Guardian, which I know there was quite a few tweaks from that from the playtest version. I'm really excited that we tried to make this class as tanky as we possibly could. We've boosted the hit points to 12 per level. We've given it some resistance to the physical damage at first level that's not tied in with armor specialization. It's sort of just its own thing. As long as you're wearing medium or heavy armor, of course, right? And so it's going to help them stay on their feet for as long as possible. There's of course, we tweaked all the feats. We tweaked a lot of sort of the way we tweaked the way taunt worked. A lot of stuff. You're going to love it. I guarantee it. I sure hope you love it. And you might notice that the Guardian is a big blue fella. Who the heck is that, right? What's going on? This is a new ancestry in the book. We're calling them the Jotunborn. They come from a subplanar realm called the Fray that sits sort of just underneath the universe. They were placed there millennia ago by the gods as sort of ancestors of Titans to act as custodians to the sort of universe, essentially. Jotunborn returned to Golarion to help clean up the big messes like Earthfall and the God's Reign, right? But thanks to the God's Reign, many Jotunborn can't kind of get back. They've come to Golarion to sort of clean some stuff up, maybe pick up a couple of these war shards and clean up the mess that's sort of left behind. But a lot of them can't get back. So we're going to be seeing a few more of them sort of in Golarion more frequently, right? As you can see, they have this sort of cultural practice of weaving silk threads into their skin that give off a faint light. And these little silk threads are from this planar beetle known as Ivlars. And that's sort of what they kind of look like crab. And then crabs and horseshoe crabs almost, I would say, but they weave a kind of a fun kind of glow in the dark silk. And a lot of Jotunborn are trained to herd them around. That they have or keep them basically, as shepherd them along, right? So the Jotunborn are very big, they're very strong, they're very tough, but they're also kind of in tune with nature. They're kind of in tune with the universe, and I like to think of them as kind of just sort of like wanting to help people out. Like they're there for the most part, want to get in there and just sort of aid people. They're large, of course, since they're descended from Titans, right? And their ancestry feats focus a little bit on being that big. Maybe, tucking people along, hooking people around and pushing people down, that kind of stuff. But also they have some inherent vague plane hopping abilities that give them a little bit of teleports, here and there. So it's pretty cool stuff. That was written by Luis Loza. So, it's got probably some hints to what might be happening in the future in there. This book has also got archetypes. It's got battle-focused options for existing classes like the Sorcerer and Thaumaturge. It's got equipment and magic items, of course. It's got spells and rituals. And I've talked long enough. Logan, you worked on this book. What's one of your favorite things about it?
I think one of my favorite things in there are the new vehicles. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of kind of warfare themed vehicles in there. I think most people kind of already know what vehicles are for GM Core, so I'm just going to do a whole bunch of name dropping so people can let their imaginations run wild instead of tell you how vehicles work. There's the Air Cycle and the Siege Dragon, which is designed to look like a dragon, kind of like one of our previous vehicles. There is a Medical Wagon, so it's not just combat, like direct combat vehicles, but also some kind of support stuff in there. The Necro Roamer, and in the sea vehicles we have an Ironclad and we have a Steam Turtle.
Steam Turtle,
which you can see right there. You can imagine yourself, kind of tootling around in that, out on the waves, and making some naval engagements a little more turtley.
It's got that gangplank that sort of flump down onto a ship or onto a beach and just sort of explode into troops everywhere. Yeah. Thank you, Logan. Michelle, what do you, you've probably had a peek at this book. What do you like about it? Tell me more about the book. What you like about the book I helped make.
Yes, I've taken a peek, and one of my favorite archetypes from it, which would actually be great for a character in Hellbreakers is the field propagandist. You're just so good at telling people what they gotta know and how they should know it. And oh, coincidentally, that's gonna help me out. And they just have some really cool feats that are about how they can persuade people to think in a certain way. And at one point, they get so good at spinning tales that it's all the truth. It just depends on what angle you're looking at it, but it's all true.
Could be true.
It's just such a great archetype. I love it.
I really enjoyed. I had fun writing this piece of art where this guy's like, Valeros, look at him. He's clearly a devil. He's too strong. He must be a devil. For me, one of the things I really enjoyed that we added a couple new Jotunborn specific weapons, which are in a way sort of one of them looks a little familiar. That is the sort of Jotunborn maul spade. It's good for digging and bashing people in the head, and may looks, if you've seen any Star Trek stuff, they may look a little familiar with that. But and the other one is kind of like a big rake. Well, it's called the Blade Sweeper. It's literally like 3 swords tied to a single hilt. It is just like taking advantage of the fact that Jotunborn are big and can just sort of wield big, ridiculous looking weapons. If you like swords on your swords, we put swords on them. So it'll be good fun.
It does kind of look like a Jotunborn got like upsold to the deluxe package. It's like, oh well, you wanted 1 sword. What if you had 2 swords? Or may I interest you for the truly elite customer? 3 swords.
3 swords. It's like razor technology, right? It's always like more blades the better, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, soon we're gonna come out with 4 or 5 blades and some sort of moisturizing strip on the edge of the hilt there. Ridiculous stuff. We're bringing, we're doing some remasters of some stuff you may have seen from previous things, for some other weapons, like which was called the battle lute, for instance, for when you need to play some music instruments and bash people in the head with it, that kind of good stuff. But one of the big, huge things in this book is our skirmish encounter subsystem for showing off how we can do big, huge battles while sort of remaining within the sort of scope of Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And I know, Logan, you worked a lot hard and long on this, so please give us a skinny on skirmish encounters.
Okay, so skirmish encounters. You might have caught some of this if you watched the keynote, but for those of you who didn't catch that before, I'll give kind of the overview. So skirmish encounters let you do kind of a squad versus squad combat that still uses your Pathfinder character and all their abilities, but they get to lead a troop alongside them. So we decided, rather than doing like a big, like kind of a separate game that is a mass combat system, we wanted to do something where you're still kind of playing your Pathfinder character, still running around on a battlefield, but you also get to kind of have your allies there with you and clash, against an enemy squad in a little skirmish fight. So it's kind of inspired by things like Dynasty Warriors, where you're kind of, mostly controlling one character, but you've got all this cool warfare going on around you, and you're cutting a bunch of people down. And we also have like a little bit of morale rules, kind of like a lot of war games do, where troops can get routed and run away from a skirmish. But if they're being commanded by a PC or an NPC commander, it's easier for them to stick around. We also kind of let you move around pretty freely. You're essentially considered to be in any square that your troop is in, so you can kind of hop over and attack one side and then the other, and kind of be really dynamic in the battle. And if you have a little bit of extra time to prepare, you can train with your troop and get a skirmish bond with them that's going to let you do things like increase their discipline, or they can cast spells with you. If they're more of a spellcasty troop, they can do stealthy things with you, so that you can kind of tailor them to work with your character even better than they normally do. There are also a few extra kind of options you have. So for example, though skirmish warfare is mostly meant to be squad versus squad, we have suggestions for the GM on how you might do, like, the PCs team up with their squads of troops to fight one big tough monster, to kind of do those kind of all versus one fights against a really dangerous foe. Yeah, that's kind of the basics of skirmish encounters, and there's a lot of support for it in this book.
Yeah, you can mix it up too, right, Logan? You can have one big dragon by itself, and then like here's a couple, if it's kobold armies or what have you, or undead armies, and then you've got your unarmed armies, each commanded by one different PC, just sort of smashing all the things together for a quite an epic sort of battle. But you gotta make sure you gotta have enough space on that battle mat. Because troops are gargantuan. The big things you want to fight up against are probably going to be just as big.
We also have some suggestions for if you don't have that much space on your table, to kind of do it at half scale so that you can kind of move your troops around with a little more space to work with if you need to.
Yeah. And to sort of help with those encounters, Battlecry has over 20 pages of new troop stat blocks that you can sort of plug in sort of at lots of different levels from 4 up to about like 18 or 19, I think. We've got choruses of angels and all the way to Zulgath dinosaur cavalry. Gotta love it. And there's some stuff in there that you might not expect, some creatures in there that you might see fighting up against each other, but we've also got some basic stuff like druid circles and monks groups and whatnot, that sort of thing. All of this, hopefully, maybe we'll see this in action in the Hellbreakers AP. So, Michelle, why don't you tell us something about what we're going to see there, as much as you can, of course.
Yes, so I can say that Hellbreakers is a low-level adventure for levels 1 through 9, and that it is coming out Q1 of next year. And this picture that we're seeing are the lovely founders of the Hellbreakers League, which is a rebel organization, very grassroots, fighting to free Isger from Cheliaxian rule. These are Phoebe and Alceo Demetrius. They are a married couple that met when Phoebe was protecting Alceo as a bodyguard from some Cheliaxian bounty hunters, let's say, who really wanted his head because he was helping people escape Cheliax. So they met, they got married, and they decided, let's lead a rebellion together. If any viewers know Mr. Miracle and Big Barda from DC Comics, that's who I was inspired by for them. But they are trying to lead this rebellion, but they're a very small organization, and so they have to go small first, and it's hard because Isger is very entrenched in Cheliaxian culture, and especially after the Goblin Blood Wars, the Church of Asmodeus. Do we say Asmodeus or Asmodeus?
Asmodeus.
I've mostly heard Asmodeus, but it's whatever your home group uses is the right pronunciation.
The Church of the red guy.
Big Red. We call him Big Red.
Mr. Pentagrams.
Mr. Pentagrams. They sent over nuns from the Sisterhood of the Golden Erinyes. And so they have become well known for their charity and for opening up orphanages for orphans after these Goblin Blood Wars. And look, they even take care of little goblins. They're just so tender-hearted and loving.
Yeah. They do it all for the love.
They do it all for love. And so it is hard because these churches have become such a part of the culture, and the people of Isger have come to rely on them. And so a lot of people think, hey, we don't like Cheliax that much, but the Church of Asmodeus, they're good. They help us. So it's very much a culture war. Oh, I don't know if I should say that, but it's very much a war of culture and this divide between how much power the Church of Asmodeus has over them. And we've got some great writers. We have some guy named Jason Keeley.
Who's that jerk?
Some guy, I don't know. We've also got let me make sure I'm saying all their names right. We have Jacob W. Michaels, and we also have Sen HHS, and then we've got some other authors who have done amazing work in the back matter to help supplement the book, and it's just going to be great, guys. And this is only part 1 of the adventures, because there's going to be a second adventure during the Hellfire Crisis, and just maybe we've heard your calls and prayers, and we made it a direct sequel to this one.
Yeah, that one's gonna be for the high levels and whatnot. So, Michelle, so you get to play as a member of the Hellbreakers League in this, or can you be somebody else?
You are going to be members of the Hellbreakers League, working from basically going from the bottom as just these scrappy little rebels, and building your organization up and marching around all over Isgir to raise the people up and rally them to your cause.
Yeah, we're gonna see some goblins.
Oh yeah, we're definitely gonna see some goblins.
All right, exciting.
I mean, you saw a little picture of one right there.
Well, yeah, that's I think that's goblin. I mean, that's a Golden Aranist propaganda. I'm sure that they don't necessarily.
They've got a field propagandist of their own.
Yeah, they're nothing but. One of these days, there might be some fun orphanage stuff, and I remember writing some fun orphanage stuff in your venture. What could that mean? Who knows? There's one more thing we can talk about for now that's part of phase 1 of Hellfire Crisis, and that is the novel Operation Hellmouth by Chris A. Jackson. You can see that the cover right now. This is the final cover. It's got a scary dragon on it. Love it. And it's definitely ties into the Hellfire Crisis, because Valeros, and there he is in the front there, he's getting swept up in all these Cheliaxian machinations as aspects of his past come crashing into the present day. But it also features the beloved characters from all the other Chris A. Jackson novels, Pirate's Honor, Pirate's Promise, Pirate's Prophecy, that kind of thing. But you don't need to have read those to follow the plot, but please go out and read them. They're fun stuff. And if you read the book's blurb, that's sort of up there, you'll mention that there's also a young Eagle Knight becomes part of that part of the crew, or some involved with the plot somehow. And those who know Valeros's backstory might be able to figure out who that is. So speculate amongst yourselves. The first chapter of this exciting story is available now in the softcover edition of God's Reign, and depicts Valeros, Sione, and Harsk at the Battle of Hell Knight Hill. And so they're going to be there doing their own things. And it will all be Operation Hellmouth is going to be available on hardcover, ebook, and audiobook in November. So coming up real soon on that. And if you want to keep an eye on all these things and what's coming up in phase 2, you're going to hear more about what the Lost Omens books are going to be for phase 2, what the name of this second AP is going to be, all the stuff about the Year of Battle Spark, which is the scenario stuff, society stuff that's happening during the course of this event. You can keep track of it all at hellfirecrisis.com, which is going to be should be live now, so go check it out and look at some fun stuff. All right, does anyone have anything else they want to talk about before we maybe dive into these questions?
I'm ready for questions.
All righty. Here's one that just sort of jumped out at me. How can I make Abigail like less things? Fair, that one is a bit of a joke question, of course. Abigail, she's going to like what she likes, and she's going to dislike what she dislikes. You can't tell Abigail what to do, right? No. Suppose not. Okay.
Maybe therapy?
Therapy? Oh, is she going to go to therapy? I don't know.
I don't think it's going to go well.
She listens to Gorthaclek, so maybe you could influence Gorthaclek a little bit and have him tell her what Asmodeus wants. I don't know.
I think the breakdown is good luck.
Yeah. For instance. Okay. The question is, will the battle be made canon? The battle of, I assume this is for the Battle of Hell Knight Hill. The Battle of Hell Knight Hill is going to be, yes, part of our sort of canon of events that occur in the Lost Omens setting, right? It will have happened. Essentially, going into the future tense. It hasn't happened yet technically. It is basically sort of happening. If you follow the calendar, it's going to be happening in the summer of this year, 4725. And so when it happens at Gen Con, is basically that is when it is happening in Golarion. And so, the stuff that you do in the Battle of Hell Hill event, obviously we're going to be running sort of the same scenario kind of multiple times. But for the most part, the sort of general outcome of the battle, i.e., Andoran wins, Hell Knights get pushed away, is definitely going to be canon.
So if your rolls go really, really badly at Gen Con, we are going to have to pulp a lot of books and scramble, and change up the whole event.
Oh yeah, it's going to be just called. This will be called the Hellfire Crisis anymore. It'll be called the Hellfire. Everything's just fine. Wink, wink. All right. So, gosh, any more specific archetypes from Battlecry? I don't know if you. I know a couple of them, but if anyone else wants to talk about anything else they saw in there that just briefly mention them by name, you don't have to explain what they are. I'll start. Okay. One of the things that we're doing, we're there's going to be a couple remastered ones in there. And we're sort of basically bringing in the Aldori Duelist, right? But we're adding a couple extra feats to it, so it's not just remastered; it's added on too. You remember if you've played Abomination Vaults, there was an archetype in the back of that called Drow Shootist. What are we going to do with that? We can't say that word anymore. It is now called the Crossbow Infiltrator, and it also has been remastered and has some new fun feats. And if anyone else, I could just throw out a couple names.
I'll claim one of the kind of fairly classic ones. There's a War Mage.
What's that going to mean exactly? And there's one just called a. This would be for those of you who have been playing the Impossible playtest. Is that there is what do we end up calling it? Necrologist? No, not. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Necrologist. It's a little bit like it's a little necromancer adjacent. A little early, but different than what you've seen in the playtest, of course. All right. It's a question of which Hell Knight orders are refusing House Thrune. That is, we have a nice list of that. That's going to be a little more information that we present in one of our Lost Omens book for sure. But you can expect things like the Order of the Torrent in Ravenel is definitely going to refuse, right? The Order of the Nail, who moved to Varisia, they don't care what's going on in Cheliax anymore, right? So they've basically sort of both of them definitely refused, and a lot of them sort of they're still going to be called Hell Knights. It's just that some of them are going to be officially Chelaxian Hell Knights, and some of them will be more independent Hell Knights. I'm sorry. A lot of these questions I can answer, so I apologize for me asking them and then answering them, and you guys not saying anything. But feel free want to jump in for any reason. Now, there's a couple questions about like sort of okay. We talked about Hell Knight Hill, Citadel Alterain, sort of being kind of coming back from being mentioned in Age of Ashes, right? Sort of appearing for the first time, I would say, in an adventure in Age of Ashes. There's been some questions about like, oh, well, that adventure path went to level 20. Aren't these level 20 PCs? Aren't my level 20 PCs just hanging out there? Can't they just save the day? Well, we kind of assume that level 20 NPCs, your level 20 PCs have maybe like gone off and done something bigger and huger. They're not necessarily staying at Citadel Alterain. I believe that there's some mention of those heroes sort of in passing, having sort of gifted the Citadel to the people of Breach Hill as they go off into the cosmos to other planes to continue their adventures. So we have, it's mentioned, but if you want to have your PC show up and at the Battle of Hell Knight, something if you want to change the canon for your home game, you feel free to do that, of course. It's just that'll mean that the Hell Knights get their butt kicked a little faster. That maybe those level 20 PCs were on vacation when the Hell Knights popped up and took the castle back, took the Citadel back, and then your PCs can come back and say
they had trouble with their hotel reservations. They had to come back early. The Hell Knight's like, oh, come on.
Oh no! Home Alone.
Logan, Death Dreams Live wants to know what the book behind you with the 7-pointed star is.
The one over here?
Yeah.
That is the Rise of the Rune Lords Anniversary Edition Super Deluxe Edition that has a big old cool box with a metal binding and a bunch of extra handouts in it and all kinds of cool stuff like that. I don't know if you can find those anymore, but they're very cool.
Yeah, I bet you not. Maybe on
limited
eBay?
edition.
It was definitely super limited edition. Super limited edition.
Chat can tell us how much those cost if they can find them on eBay. So.
Fair enough. Here's another question. Here's a question. Also, Logan can help answer this one. Could the squad rules, these skirmish rules, be helpful for a solo player taking on adventures with their GM in like duet games, or is the scope not quite that way?
They're kind of built for a special type of encounter. So they're kind of built for like squad versus squad more so than like squad versus, a standard group of enemies. So you're probably better off grabbing some like NPCs or DMPCs that kind of travel along with you, or controlling multiple characters. You can grab some friends from NPC core to have adventure with you that are a little simpler than a full character, that sort of thing. You could give it a shot, and I'd recommend if you're trying it, there's a lot of advice for GMs on kind of how to use skirmish encounters. So I'd recommend if you're planning to try it, have your GM look at it, maybe do a trial combat using that, and then see if it's something you want to keep doing all the time. But they're a little more complicated than a standard fight, so they're kind of meant for special occasions.
Yeah. And if you're gonna do that with like just one PC and one troop, maybe only have one troop on the other side, or maybe not even one troop. Definitely keep the scope a little lower to make sure that people don't get overwhelmed. Another question about the Guardians' mobility and movement actions and reactions. How have they changed? I'll tell you this. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but the Guardian has gotten a little more mobility in the sense of being able to sort of help intercept these attacks that against their friends. So we did look at that, and we did decide a way that we could give it a little more moving around. So you're not don't necessarily need to be stuck next to your PC friend to be able to protect them. You might be able to be a few feet away, and it helps to have a big guy with a big reach weapon. So you don't need to be that. You can still stab at people a little bit further away and still be pretty close to your friend here. Okay. Here's a question from Michelle that we can ask about Hellbreakers League. The Hellbreakers AP. Do you have any idea? Can you say about me what classes you might be recommend? Would one be allowed to play a Nephilim, like a hell spawn Nephilim or a pitborn Nephilim?
Yeah, so you can totally play a Nephilim with lineage from the lower planes. It is kind of up to you and your GM whether you want that to spark a little social tension, or just be like, hey, we all know that this person is cool and that's just not going to be a part of our game. Like, that's something you should always talk about with your GM, since it does parallel real life racial tensions. And then as far as classes, basically anything divine the Hellbreakers are a big fan of. So clerics, champions, exemplars, like those are we're big fans of anything divine, since it's kind of the antithesis of fiendish and devilish. But also obviously the commander and guardian are incredibly good for Hellbreakers, since we're gonna be essentially waging war. Rogue is great for all the spying and subterfuge. Ranger is something you might not expect, but there is quite a bit of, spoiler alert, overland travel in this adventure. So Ranger can be very helpful. And
Nice.
But I will say pretty much any class can work, because anybody can rebel. Anybody can, stand up for themselves and for their fellow man. So any class that you want can and will work, but some of them are just a little more thematic than others.
Great. Fantastic. Let's do it. Let's free Isger. Here's a here's a here's a question. Is Charbafon gonna have his undead butt handed to him? Not
I wish.
necessarily.
I
Yeah, we
wish.
all wish, but he's not gonna be a big part of this one. He's nearby, of course, but the sort of previous sort of uh, 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 Spore War AP that sort of talked a little bit about how the Incarthan, the nations around Lake Incarthan are sort of locking, hands and maybe forming an alliance, which may come into play later. But this Hellfire Crisis is more about, unsurprisingly, Cheliax and devils and a little Asmodeus stuff.
I think Tarbafon's also a big fan of like let my possible opponents dwindle themselves down.
Exactly.
I'll take care of it later.
He's over there biding his
He's
time.
got a lot of patience. Yeah.
It's like, I've been undead for hundreds of years. I can wait another 10. Alrighty. Let's see. Oh, okay. Here's a question about speaking of Hell Knights. Will there be a remastered Hell Knight archetypes released for Pathfinder 2E? Keep your eyes peeled. They're not going to be in Battlecry, but keep your eyes peeled for sure. You'll be seeing them in the near future. And that's all I'll say about that. Yes, another thing about Battlecry, I did mention battle options for sorcerers and thaumaturges. These are not going to be class archetypes. These are going to be extra things. It's basically a new sorcerer bloodline, and I'm going to spoil this one: a new thaumaturge implement. But I'm not going to say what it is, since we sort of don't have to stick to sort of like spell schools anymore. Really, we can sort of sprinkle in new thaumaturge implements. Oh, here's a question, Logan. Do enemy squads need commanders as well, or can you run squads versus just non-commanded armies?
You absolutely can. You can do all enemy troops with commanders. You can do one of them has a big cool commander, and the other ones are a little bit more of the kind of mooks. In essence, you can do a large troll and also some troops with or without commanders. You can do a bunch of different kind of combat breakdowns. Kind of as long as you have some troops in there and the PCs have their troops with them, you can kind of design the opposition however you want.
Cool. Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about speaking of troops and whatnot commanding. Does the commander, I'm going to read this one directly. Does the commander support the lazy lord fantasy of sitting around and ordering other people to do the fighting for you? I think no. I think the commander is very much a get into the scrum of things battler, right? Like they are like, we're going to go do this and you're going to follow me into the battle because you need to be that commander's aura. You need to have it around you, unless there's that one. I think it's a second level feat where you can like throw your banner or plant it in the ground and then walk away. But for the most part, like you're in this, you should be in the thick of things because a lot of the feats are like, I hit somebody and then I can, give someone else a chance to hit, or I can, do my tactic. That is, everyone stab this guy at the same time. So, it's definitely it definitely helps you sort of help move other people around the battlefield, which is something that we wanted to do with it. But you're not just going to be in the back yelling. Okay. Let's talk. Oh, we'll go back to a little bit about Hell Knights. All right. Yeah, this might be a question for you, Michelle. So, Galaxy Guy, Starfinder 2E's Galaxy Guy does also have a Hell Knight archetype in it. Now, since the sort of systems are sort of compatible, like cross-compatible, would you recommend or not recommend someone like trying to sprinkle that into there as a player option?
Into Hellbreakers?
Into Hellbreakers, yeah.
I mean, you could certainly go for it. I guess I don't see why not. Since the systems are compatible, just you don't get any cool lasers or anything. This is
I don't think that's
fantasy. We're in the muck and the grime here.
I think, yeah. I mean, obviously, you shouldn't just plop it in there without telling your GM you're doing it.
Yeah, definitely. You got to coordinate with the GM, and you might need to make some tweaks depending. But yeah. I mean, if you and your GM and your table are gonna have fun with, as long as everybody checks off yes I say go for it. Have fun.
Sure.
And
yeah.
maybe make sure, like, the couple campaigns leading up to that, you played kind of normal characters, so you saved up all your, your GM credit for
yeah
for the really weird one this time around.
Leave your there. Don't frustrate your GM. As a forever GM, I know the pain of just being like, I just want to let's do this campaign where you're just going. We're going to this dungeon. Great. I'm going to be pick the weirdest possible combination of ancestry and class. I'm like, okay, fine. You're weird. Everyone's weirdos. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more a little bit about Hellbreakers here. So we've got this is Gary yeah. Oh, I mean, so with the war brewing directly in Isgar's hinterlands, will there be any plot lines about Isgari freedom like Ravenel before it? Yes, that's what Hellbreakers AP is all about, right, Michelle? It's about fighting for Isgari freedom. I answered that question for you, even though it is technically like, but I think it's pretty straightforward.
There's not much more to say. Yeah,
there's not much more to say.
That the whole AP is about trying to obtain freedom for Isgar and rebelling against Cheliax, but trying to do it in a way that's not just gonna give Cheliax fuel to say, "Oh, look at these dissidents. We're gonna go crush them now." We got to be smart about it.
In the meantime, Andoran and Cheliax are fighting their own war, and they have their own shared border.
Exactly.
Like Isgar is just kind of north of both of them, so that it was kind of like a proxy situation to start the war. But now they're they're sort of clashing along their shared border and in the seas.
Now
and sort of
the big fish are fighting, so let the little fish break free.
The little fish can kind of break free. And I'll sort of answer this one, who's people talking a little bit about the Citadel Altrain and this big teleportation ring that was in the basement of it during Age of Ashes. Who's taking care of it? I mean, it's sort of like, to be honest, sort of hand wave the way. It most likely they probably, if these level 20 PCs are giving the Citadel to the people of Breach Hill, they probably turned it off. Right? It's not necessary. It doesn't play a part in the sort of larger crisis, right? Once sort of the Battle of Hell and Hell happens, Citadel Altrain kind of takes a sort of back seat. Basically, we don't sort of go back there that much. In Breach Hill, maybe we appears a little bit in Hellbreakers, but it's sort of where things begin. But then most of the fighting kind of spreads out to the other countries and sort of other fronts and all sorts of things. And speaking of that, will Cheliax have allies in the war among other countries and organizations? They might. They're pretty friendly with Nadal, but Nadal's got kind of their own problems with the Horse Lords beginning to do their own little rebellion. It's going to be tricky. What are they going to do? Are they going to demand that Ravenel sort of support them in the war? What will Ravenel say about that? These are all the sorts of things that we are going to find out in Lost Omens books that are coming out, basically next year. So keep an eye out again for hellfirecrisis.com for that. Here's a question again for Battlecry. This might be our last question that we have, and then we can kind of chat amongst ourselves since we're ending a little early. Will we ever get cohort rules back, i.e. a humanoid companion in the vein of construct or undead companions? I will tell you that Battlecry has something in it that you will probably enjoy. Whoever asked that question. Keep an eye out for it. Go get it. You're gonna see that there's we looked at a way to possibly give you a little bit of a friend on the battlefield. Yeah, I think it's a good tease. All right. So, any other final words? I don't think we have any final questions. I'm very excited about this book. It's my first real book as a design lead, and I hope everyone enjoys it. This whole event is very exciting, and you're gonna love the way it turns out. I tell you that much. Or maybe you won't. I don't know. Maybe you really, you have certain feelings.
Devils.
Maybe, well, if you, who knows?
I saw a question real quick asking if we were going to have any APs showing the Cheliax side, like Hell's Vengeance. We will not. We found that having kind of the simultaneous APs like that, it had a lot of fatigue for players. So we are just going to be having APs. The two APs, I guess, since I already spoiled that it's pretty much a direct sequel, you will be on the freedom side of the argument.
Yes, we probably won't be doing many sort of quote unquote evil APs anytime in the near future. That's not something that's as far as I know, it doesn't interest. I'm not on the narrative team, but I don't think it's been a big sort of
yeah.
right?
It's something people are excited about, but it's not a not like it's a pretty vocal minority. It seems like who are interested in those, and generally people aren't as interested in playing evil campaigns.
Yeah. It's a whole thing. It's a tricky line to walk, especially as a sort of a major publishing company. We try to keep things and like you said, not as many people want to play them, so we want to have these adventures be sort of maybe a little broader for people to enjoy and sell. We got to make our money, you guys. I guess though, with that, we're gonna wrap up here. I don't think I don't have anything to say. Come to Gen Con and check out stuff. We might talk a little bit more about the Hellfire Crisis in the books there and what's to come in phase 2 of the crisis. So keep an eye on that and keep an eye on hellfirecrisis.com for all the latest updates. And I will see you all in hell, I guess. No, wait.
Yeah. Have a good crisis, everybody.
Have a good crisis. Merry Christmas to all. All right. Bye. Good night.